It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to our first show in the month of May. And a big month it is. You ready for the Derby? Mark, did you place a bet for the Derby? Mark, did you buy more Bitcoin or not on the way down? No. Okay, so I told you to do it and you didn't do it. Yeah, I got all nuts and I said buy a little more and you didn't. Okay. I don't own any Bitcoin. Mark is experimenting on behalf of the program. And what was your entry price? 8 or 10? Low 8s. So then it goes down and then he's freaking and then it went up. And then I said, buy some more when it goes below 8. And then it went below 8. I went away and I didn't bother you. And then you didn't do anything. It's trending up, which is why you should have bought it on the way down, dum-dum. Oh, he says it's going to sell soon. All right, maybe. All right, let me tell you some other exciting news here at the Jill on Money show, because this is an amazing thing. There is an organization called the Alliance for Women in Media. The Alliance for Women in Media gives out something called the Gracie Awards, named after Gracie Allen, the great comedian. And awards are given out in television and in radio and in podcasts. And guess what? In radio, the best national talk show is Jill on Money. Woo! So I'm going to go pick up the award later this month, and we'll put some cool photos up on the website. Very excited. We are very, very excited. And I'm excited, and thanks to everyone at CBS Radio for helping us, and very much have to give a special thank you to Mark Talercio, the very best executive producer anyone could ask for. He will not be joining me at the awards ceremony, which is taking place in Los Angeles later this month. I'm not sure why. I think that maybe he said he has class. He says some nonsense about his anyway. Who else is going to be there? My colleague, Nora O'Donnell, who won for the Best On-Air Talent News or News Magazine for CBS This Morning. Samantha Bee for Not the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's kind of cool. Pam Oliver at Fox Sports. Like her a lot. Got some folks over at 60 Minutes and from CBS Sunday Morning. That's going to be fun. So anyway, we're all going to be there. It's going to be great fun. And thanks to everyone, and meaning thanks to you for helping us snag our first ever Gracie Award. So happy. Yay. Okay. Now, Wayne in Connecticut is up next. Hello, Wayne in Connecticut. How can I help you? Welcome to Jill on Money.
Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
I have a pension dilemma. I worked at Middlesex Hospital for 33 years.
Yep.
And now they want to buy out my pension.
Okay.
And the way I understand it, they're selling off their pension responsibilities to an insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
So they have offered me $317,000 to buy me out. I believe I told you I was there 33 years, and I've been retired for 7.5 years, and I'm 70 years old now, so I'm not really sure what I should do.
Let me ask you something. What if you do nothing? What happens? Is the insurance company takes it over?
Yes, and I still get my pension, and right now I get a monthly stipend of about $1,600 a month.
So your pension payment is $1,600 a month, right?
Yes.
And are you also collecting Social Security?
Yes.
And how is that going? Like the combination of Social Security plus the pension. How is your cash flow? Is that enough to support you and your wife?
Well, my wife still works. She's only 61 and a half, so she has 3.5 more years to work.
That was very smart of you to marry someone a little bit younger who's working. I see the game plan.
Yes. I could survive on that, except that she pays for our insurance, which is a big thing.
Right. And besides the pension, do you also have retirement savings, maybe through a 401k?
I have very little.
Okay. And what about your wife?
Never good at that.
That's
my
all right.
My wife is very good at that.
How much does she have in retirement assets?
For some reason, she doesn't want me to get her involved.
Okay. But,
well,
let me ask you this. Here's what I want to ask. This is maybe a very important question. You ready?
Yes.
What if you drop dead tomorrow?
She's on it for 100%.
Sorry. Oh, okay. So you've got 100%. Okay. And I mean, I'm doing quick back of the envelope calculation. I don't think you should take this deal.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I mean, you might want to you really probably should talk to a fee-only financial planner, both of you, because without all the details of her life, it's hard for me to give you very good advice.
Right.
Because she's younger. And because I don't know exactly how much money look, if she had $3 million saved, then I wouldn't worry so much.
Oh, right.
Right?
That's not the case.
Right.
No, that's not the case.
Well, you didn't marry the right 62-year-old, I guess. When I run the quick calculations, what I'm looking at is that this is not a great deal because, you have a guarantee right now. And it would be very difficult for you to generate the $19,000 on that, let's say, what did you say, 317, 315? What did you say?
I believe it's 317.
Okay. I mean, that's like a 6% withdrawal rate. I couldn't say that you could do that. That would be really hard. I think that the buyout is low. I think that you guys should see a financial planner, a fiduciary, someone who can really look at both of your situations and scope it out and project what is the best idea. But from the facts that you're giving me, it appears to me that you should stick with what you have and presuming nothing else, presuming that they don't actually take anything away from you. So that is my advice, Wayne. I wish you the best of luck. And if you're listening and you've got a question about a pension or a buyout, the most important thing to remember is that pensions are guarantees. And if you take the $315,000 offer, or $317,000 offer, just remember, now that money's at risk. And there is no guarantee. So the guarantee is worth a lot, and a lot more than I think the $317,000. So thank you so much for calling, Wayne. You're listening to Jill on Money. Give us a holler. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com and go to our website, JillOnMoney.com. You can listen to past shows and sign up for our free newsletter. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone number is 855-411-JILL. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. If you go to our website, jillonmoney.com, you can listen to past shows. You can sign up for our free newsletter. Mark, I didn't get last week's. I don't know what happened. Oh, Mark's fault. Oh, my God, he never admits a mistake. What? I'm totally kidding. He never makes mistakes. That's why it's easy for him. On the website, you can do a few things besides sign up for the free newsletter. You can read the stuff that we've written and listen to previous shows. You can watch videos and appearances on national television. You can do it all. Check it out. We also have a whole resource tab. And we're always adding to that resource tab. If you think there are some great resources out there that you have encountered to help your financial life, please, please, please send them along. We'd love to add them. That would be great. Okay, let's go take a call. David's on the line from Maryland. Hello, David. Welcome to Jill on Money. What can I do for you?
How are you doing today?
Good.
All right. So I guess, my main question is, keep renting or buy a condo.
Okay. Give me a little of the background. How old are you?
So I'm 26.
Yep.
All right. Married about 10 months ago to my wife, who will be 23. About combined between $3,500 and $4,000 a month income. Right now, we're paying only $1,100 a month in rent.
Oh, I love that rent.
Yeah. It happens to be. It's 350 square feet. It's not,
Hey, you're married. You're young. You still like each other. It works. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we are eventually looking to upgrade in the next few months, six plus. So our two options are we could rent a bigger apartment but it'll go up to between $1,500 and $1,800 a month. Or in that same building, we could buy a condo for, let's say, between $150,000 and $200,000. So with about $40,000 in mutuals, so we could put a down payment on that.
So you've got $40,000 that's saved up and it's sitting in mutual funds right now.
Correct.
And what is it? $40,000? You would say is that post tax? Do you owe some tax on that?
Maybe some on the interest, but overall not so much.
Okay, so you have the $40,000 down payment.
And buying a house now it seems like it would drive my monthly payment up to $3,000 plus, with PMI and everything, and it just doesn't sound pretty.
Well, why would you have PMI if you're going to buy $150,000?
Well, no. That would be for a condo. It would be $150,000, but it would be a house.
Oh, I see. I'm still stuck on the condo. So how much would the condo add to your what would your monthly payment be with a condo where you put $40,000 down?
It would be approximately before condo fees, which I'm not sure the exact range, but somewhere between $200 and $600 a month. It would be about the same, maybe even go down by about $100 a month.
Wait, you mean it would be $1,000 a month?
Just about.
And
mortgage payments, yeah.
Okay, and so let's say it was $1,500 a month, right? Because you have the fees, and then let's even say it's like $1,800 a month because it would be fees and taxes and property taxes and homeowners insurance or condo insurance. And would you be living in would that $150,000 or $200,000 price tag get you a larger condo in your area? Yeah.
Yeah, significantly. It would be right now this is a 1-bedroom basement apartment in a house. This would be a 2 or 3-bedroom apartment. In a 14-story building.
And for any other debt that's outstanding that you got nothing major that you can pay that off. Okay, good. Yeah. And you said $35,000 to $4,000 a month. Was that take home income after tax?
Take home.
Oh, great. You guys putting money away in retirement yet?
Retirement not yet. For sitting aside. Trying to get let's say emergency funds and everything. All the stuff that will come short term as opposed to long term yet.
But let's say you drained this $40,000 non-retirement account. You use that for the down payment. Would you have an emergency reserve fund beyond that or not?
Not much. That's what we're working on building now.
Okay. Here's what I think the game plan should be. This is while you still have this $1,100 a month in rent, I would not move to unless you feel like you desperately need the flexibility. How long do you think you're going to stay in this area where you're living right now?
Yeah, we're going to stay in the area. We're in this place until the end of the year.
Okay.
The question is, we technically could come back, but that's what it comes down to.
I think, I think that during this, I wouldn't put any more money into that mutual fund account. But I would build up your emergency reserve fund. I really would love for you guys to have, I don't know, how much do you have in there now? A couple thousand?
Right now it's a couple thousand. It's in a high interest yield.
Okay.
High interest savings.
I would like you guys to put as much money as you can into that emergency reserve fund, and hopefully have, let's say, $10,000 or $12,000 at the end of the by the end of the year. Then I think at the end of the year, you need to make your decision about whether you're going to buy this condo or not. I don't think a house is on your horizon right now because I think that it's too much of a jump for you to start to absorb a payment of, 2 to 3 times what you would be paying. I think that if you could buy a condo right now, you could be in there for hopefully 4 or 5 years before you start banging out some kids. It's still affordable. And during that time, I'd want you to be moving some money into your retirement accounts, and hopefully you're making more money. I think essentially, that if you're dying to get into a bigger place, that's the way to do it. If you want more flexibility, then you will have to kind of suck it up and pay the $1,500 to $1,800 a month in rent, which is fine. And then at the same time, though, you got to keep doing exactly the same thing, which is you've got to be putting money into your emergency reserve fund, and you've got to be adding a heck of a lot more money into that house down payment account.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it depends. Do you feel like you want to have that flexibility? I mean, how do you feel?
I mean, my main question is I could, if I were to put the down payment, so there's at this point, no formidable plan to rebuild that lost $40,000. Now, granted, I could sell the condo, get some of it back, but still not,
No, I would never do that. In fact, that mutual fund money, that's gone. The next kind of investing I want you guys to do, and I really do want you to do this, is to put money into your retirement accounts.
Right.
That to me is more important than putting more money away.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe look, the house is, I think the house is like your classic. Like this is either right this minute you say to yourself, I really want to make sure that I lock this in. I want to get my, we've had a great run in the stock market, or we've had a really good run in this brokerage account. We want to make sure that we have that. You can take that approach and certainly be able to have, the same thing going forward. You're going to get a rent, let's say, either a bigger apartment by buying or renting. If you want maximum flexibility, you rent. If you feel like I don't want to, like, quote unquote, throw my rental dollars out the window, then buy the condo. But, you got to stay there for a bunch of years to make it worth your while.
Right.
And that's it. That's really, it's about flexibility more than anything else for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
All righty. Have a good one.
Take care. I usually love to rent. I really do. I don't know. I'm sort of, it does feel in this particular case, it may be worth it for them to be buying the condo, especially because it's the condo they want to be in, like the size that they want to be in. And I think it might work in this case, depending on the fees and all, but he'll run the numbers. We'll see. And, rent versus buy is one of my very favorites. Remember that cheap rent? What was the last rent that you paid, Mark? So Mark lived in 350 square feet for 10 years, but you weren't married. Okay, so it was just you and various women coming in and out on a periodic basis. $1,100 in Midtown Manhattan. These deals do exist. It's true. All right, you are listening to Jill on Money, and when we return, we're going to take more of your questions. If you'd love to join us on the show, we'd love to have you. 855-411-JILL, or send an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money. Money here, it is not a point of shame. It's not scary. It's not boring. We have a little bit of fun with it, but we also know it's just a means to an end. It's very hard. I know. We are emotional beings. And that's what always messes with us when it comes to money. And knowing that, we kind of want to break it all down for you. So if you would like some help breaking it down, give us a holler. Our phone number is 855-411-JILL. Our email address, which is probably more efficient. And by the way, Mark does look through all of them. And so any of your nasty notes don't come to me. So you might as well stop writing them. He just filters them out. So anyone who writes something really mean, I don't see it. Same thing with social. Don't see it. You can follow us on Twitter and you can hate tweet at me. Mark only sends me a bunch of stuff that I need to see. So he is my standards man, right? You're the Al Ortiz of, no one will know what that means. You're the Al Ortiz of the Jill on Money universe. He says he's better, but you guys don't know about that. Anyway, so just give us a shout and leave your vitriol to the side. You can be, I do encourage you to be questioning, but mean-spirited is not welcome here. Okay? We got an email from Victor, who had a pension and then his company turned it into a cash balance plan. That happens a lot. So the question from Victor, when I retire, should I take the money out of the plan and invest it on my own, or should I keep it with the company? It's $250,000. Their financial calculator says it would generate about $1,200 a month. Okay. It's a large company, but I don't have a lot of faith in them. I've noticed that, when we talk about pensions, that people tend to not actually factor that particular piece in. It's not just a mathematical equation. It's what is the financial wherewithal of the company to fund that pension and make good on the promise. But now Victor says he doesn't have a lot of faith in them, but I do understand the principle of having a number of different streams of income. I am in okay shape financially. I do feel like I could be doing much better financially. Also, long-term health care. Do I need it? Will Medicaid, Medicare do the job? Our household income is $225,000 a year. I'm 56. I'm a homeowner. $1.2 million in the 401k, which must be out. So then it's $250 in the cash balance. Wife has $150 in her 401k. Got a kid. So, all right, let's do a little math. I don't know how much you actually need. That's one thing. I mean, if you make $225, it doesn't mean you need that much. Here's a back of the envelope calculation, okay? Looking at your total assets, you take $1.2 million, you add your wife's 401k, okay? And then you say, I've got this other $250,000. Put that off to the side for a second. So let's say that you've got $1.35 million bucks. And you retire, you didn't tell me when, but let's say another 10 years. So let's say that you get $2 million bucks or so by the time you retire. Does that seem fair? Yeah, why not? You're putting money away. You're both putting money away. Sounds good to me. And if you get $2 million bucks, what will that generate? Let's say conservatively, somewhere between 60 and 70 grand a year. And let's also say that you both are going to get some Social Security. So maybe that's another 40 grand. So you got about $110,000 a year. That's, it's pretty much all taxable income. And now we go and look at that pension. And if you had that $1,200 a month, that might be perfect for you. I think that the big issue that I have in this plan is that, do we know whether or not you can live on that amount of money? Right? So if you have your $1,200 every single month, that's a nice $1,200 plus your Social Security is pretty much nice. So can you live on, let's call it $125,000 a year? That's my big question to you, Victor. Right back at you. If you can live on $125,000 a year, it might be quite nice to have that. And I agree that it could also be quite nice to have the money that, in addition to your Social Security, that you have this stream of income. I guess that if you can live on $125 a year, and you think that if you don't have a lot of faith in the company itself, maybe find out, is their pension and this cash balance pension, is what underlies that promise of the $1,200 a month. Is that an insurance contract? I mean, I guess I need to know a little bit more about that. If you just pop the $250 on top of your, total amount of assets. You instead of having $2 million, you have 2.25. It's going to be about the same amount of money, but it's not going to be the guarantee. So here's what I suggest to you. I think that you should run a retirement calculator, and there's a ton of them. I love the ballpark estimate. That's a good one. So just Google ballpark estimate, and you'll get a nice, easy to use financial calculator. And if you really want to dig deep into this company, you may want to have somebody do that work for you. You could probably pay a CFP or a CPA some money to try to help you figure this out. But again, without knowing how much money you need every single month, it's going to be difficult for us to give you the best guidance. So I hope that helps as a start. It's not a bad place to start. It's a good place to start. But you can always call us back if you have any follow-up, or, we're happy to, give you a little advice off on the side, okay? So, again, everyone listening, let's try to get to a place where when you're looking at retirement, the first thing you look at is not how much money you have, because that's the easy part. That's adding. The more difficult question is, how much money am I going to need? That requires you to understand how much money you are spending right now. A much more difficult calculation. All right, you are listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back with Jill on Money. And, of course, I did that whole email in the previous segment for Victor, and I didn't answer his question about long-term care insurance. So Victor, again, in his mid-50s, and, right now probably has, somewhere around, I don't know, let's call it 1.4, let's call it $1.5 million in assets. He's got a house too, and he asked about long-term care, and he's married. So I think that this kind of puts him squarely in the worry zone for long-term care insurance, meaning that, if something happened to either him or his wife, the healthy spouse would actually have a problem. And so just to dispel this myth, remember that Medicare does not cover long-term care, right? Medicare is basically, if you're 65, you've got health insurance, you get it through Medicare, and Medicare covers, hospital stays, doctor's visits. But anything that's long-term in nature, even if it's medically related, I've got dementia over the long term, I've got Alzheimer's, you're not covered by Medicare. And Medicaid is the social welfare program for people who have very little money. So Victor's got too much money to qualify for Medicaid, and Medicare doesn't cover it. So the issue is that if you have a net worth, of somewhere around $500,000 to $2 million, and you're married, you're kind of right in the sweet spot for perhaps needing some long-term care insurance. So what I suggest, Victor, is that you contact somebody who sells long-term care insurance. But there aren't that many companies that still do it. So if you have it through your employer, that's a great place to start. Otherwise, you may want to talk to a couple of different people and try to get some names. And if you come up short, you may want to even go to a fee-based financial planner, someone who you can just say, hey, can I pay you $1,000 to help me with my retirement calculations and look at my long-term care insurance options? So that's another possibility. So give that a try. Tell me how that works. Okay? Okay, last week we actually answered a question and we got a follow-up. And I love when you give me a follow-up. This is from Doug, who said, wanted to give us some a little bit more information about his financial situation. So he's 70 and his wife is 66 and they're both retired. And so now he's kind of giving me the background. His pension and Social Security generates $8,000 a month in income and their expenses are $6,000 a month. Hey, I love that. That's pretty awesome. The IRAs, meaning for that he and his wife have about $4,000 a month in income, and all of it is discretionary. The allocations we currently have for our IRAs are 50% equities and 50% bonds cash. Since I think that he means, let me just go back to this original question. Okay, I got it now. And so now his question is about the allocation. And he wants to know if 50-50 is, kind of too much in terms of safety. Because the income generated in the retirement accounts, which obviously stays in the retirement accounts until he has to pull it out by law, is kind of superfluous. And he says, is there a risk-reward situation that would maybe say that that the stock market does well? Maybe he should be more tilted towards stocks. If the stock market does poorly, and does it really matter for him? So I have two ways of thinking about this. The IRA income is not income in the classic sense in that you need to live on that income. The IRA income is basically creating a way for you to balance the risk because you have a stream of income coming in from these safer investments. Now, given your age and given that you are actually cash flow positive because you've got this extra $2,000 a month just net from the income versus your expenses, that suggests to me that two things. One is, on one hand, I say, if you wanted to push the risk, it wouldn't really matter because you're not going to have to pull money out of your retirement accounts to supplement your income. On the other hand, what for? You say to me, if you actually have the stock market doing well, you may be able to afford something you always wanted but didn't need. Well, what more do you need? You got $2,000 extra a month coming in. Sure. Could you go 60-40, 60 stocks, 40 bonds? Yeah. Would I go much more than that? Probably not. If you're a growth investor and you want to go 70-30, that's fine. But how would you feel if we get the market down, from it's down, let's say 10% from the top right now? How would you feel if it were down another 20% from the top? How would you feel if that nest egg looked a lot smaller? Would you panic? Would you keep it? Would you hold it? How would you feel about that? I don't know. I'm a wimp. Mark knows this. I really wouldn't go much beyond 60-40. But, as my mother would say, do what you want. You're listening to Jill on Money. Thanks for clarifying that question. And if you've got a financial question, we would like to hear from you, too. Just shoot us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. And during the break, go register for our newsletter. Go to JillOnMoney.com. It's free. All right. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, this is the show for you because we are here to take the mystery out of your financial life. I am Jill Schlesinger. I am a CBS News business analyst. I am the Senior Certified Financial Planner Board Ambassador. So, yes, I still have my CFP, which means that's why I can do this show. All right. Valerie writes with this question. The subject is financial planner. Is it typical that a specific financial planner only deals with one particular company in placing your investments? For example, Ameriprise, Prudential, T. Rowe Price. In other words, are there planners that would invest in a wide range of providers and maybe invest your retirement savings in more than one? Absolutely. in other words, if you have someone, there's sort of the difference between someone who's a captive professional and somebody who has the freedom to invest in lots of different investments. So, for example, if Mark is my investment advisor, he holds his accounts. He chooses to have his clients' accounts held at, say, Charles Schwab. And by doing so, he has kind of a full slate, a full menu of different companies' investment options. That's one type of planner. It's usually someone who is independent who has that. And by the way, certainly there are big wirehouse, Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley. These folks, they can give you a platform where they can invest in beyond the named types of investments from their house. But, it's one of those weird conflicts that's just out there. And if you want to be free of that conflict, you have a couple of choices. You can choose someone who's independent and has a different array of options. You can go to a robo-advisor. You can go to one of those, basically a online financial planning and investment firm like a Betterment, like a Wealthfront. Betterment's the sponsor of my podcast, so I always put that in as disclosure. But you can go and check that out because they don't have any custom pre-packaged stuff that you have to buy. So I prefer the independent route, and hopefully that helps you out. Thank you so much for writing, Valerie. And that is the first hour of the program. Stay tuned. We've got an exciting interview teed up and ready to go. It's Jill on Money. Go check out our website during the break, jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to Jill on Money. This is the show where we take the mystery out of your financial life, I hope. I'm Jill Schlesinger. Mark's running the show. I'm feeling revved up after vacation. You didn't even know I took vacation, but I did. Do you want me to reveal where I was? I did a hostage swap. I went to Paris and Macron came to the U.S. Here's what I did on vacation, okay? I drank fantastic coffee. I ate 10,000 croissants. I had unbelievable French cheese, had unbelievable French wine, which was cheap. And the dollar did appreciate while I was there, which was fantastic. I walked around like crazy. And I've now blown through my whole intro. So what are you going to do? All right. We are so delighted because if you missed it, April was Financial Literacy Month, but it's always Financial Literacy Month here at the Jill on Money Show. So we've got author and financial literacy advocate Beth Kobliner to join us. You've heard her on the program before. She's got a new video out, and it has almost 1 million views. So here is our interview with Beth Kobliner. I mean, really, I did not know how much I loved you until I started to really read your stuff. So there are a couple of books that Beth has. Make Your Kid a Money Genius is last year's release, which was fantastic, award-winning, New York Times bestselling. And Get a Financial Life, which is also award-winning.
Yes.
Separated by a little bit of time in between.
Right. What I've done is every 5 years or every 7 years, I update Get a Financial Life for the new generation. I'm like Rolling Stone magazine. Like I'm trying to be,
hip.
But what's interesting is when we were kids back in the 1800s. No, you're much younger than I am. But when we were kids, I think that it was hard to get people in their 20s, even though I was in my 20s, to get excited about money. They're like, we'll figure it out. Now I show up at a talk and like 150 young people show up who are desperate for information. And I think it's indicative of the times. There's so much more uncertainty. They have so much more concern about their financial futures. And, their parents show up and grandparents show up. So it's interesting, but I do think it's healthy and good that people are trying to be smart about money.
We just had a caller before you came in who said she's 29 years old, and she said, I love personal finance. And I started laughing, and I'm like, Mark, save that. Put it on an ongoing loop. It is also the sense that no one's going to take care of me except myself.
Exactly.
And so I think that you're right. That is healthy. Let's talk a little bit about what happened in between make your kid a money genius and get a financial life. Like for you, for people not familiar with you, kind of give a little bit of your background and what led you to write these books.
Right. Well, I've been writing about personal finance and money matters for 3 decades now, which is a long time.
By the way, she looks like she's 29. It's ridiculous.
It's good light in here. And good thing it's radio. And I've been writing about it, and a few years ago, President Obama asked me to be on his council on financial capability. It was the President's Advisory Council on Financial Capability. And what I did there was put together a website for the council that the president approved called Money as You Grow.
Which is, by the way, fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And you did it all yourself. I remember when that happened. You're like, I just did it because nobody else was going to do it.
Yeah. And I pushed it along, and all the groups and the people involved, I was a journalist. So I'm like, okay, this is what we do. Let's put out the 4 most important things parents need to know if your kids are age 3 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 13. What are the 4 things I would tell parents to know? And it was based on research, and we put it out there, and it went viral, which is kind of weird for personal finance. And over 1 million families, shared it on Pinterest and Facebook. And then I thought, wow, people are really hungry for this information. I'm going to write a book about it. So I wrote, Make Your Kid a Money Genius, even if you're not. And then I went all around the country, and I've been going on a book tour / financial literacy advocacy romp, talking to parents why it's so important to have these money conversations with their kids.
I love one of the facts in Make Your Kid a Money Genius that is your kids' money habits are formed by the time they're 7 years old.
Right.
And that is mind-blowing to me.
That was from Cambridge University. They came out with a study and shown that many of those money habits, self-control, delayed gratification, are set by age 7. And that makes people go, and it doesn't mean you have to give up if your kid is 8, but you really have to teach them in everyday moments money lessons. And the problem is, it's all online now. Do you remember, I'm sure you went with your mom or dad to the bank.
Scarsdale National Savings Bank.
Scarsdale National Savings Bank, yeah. I went to my parents, they were at 2 banks because they would run back and forth to get the better CD rate. I remember that. Higher rates on CDs at this bank, and then we'd keep it for a year, and then the day it ends, we go to the other bank. And that's what I grew up thinking about, or watching my mom doing, triple coupon day at Walbaum shopping because she would get bigger discounts, buy in bulk. She was like a hedge, an arbitrager back in the, 60s, 70s. She was a chemistry teacher, then full-time mom, but she was an arbitrager.
Wait a
minute.
Buying
in bulk.
She was a chemistry teacher?
Yeah, she was smart.
Why didn't you go into science?
I didn't like it.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. I remember so vividly. Actually, I had a not great science teacher in 7th grade who told us everyone memorize the periodic table.
Stop it.
And I went home and I'm like, Mom, what's the periodic table? And she was appalled because she was a great science teacher. And she explained it to me, blah, blah, blah. And I think because it wasn't tied to people. And I think now, sadly, as our parents get older and people we love get older, I've been learning more about various issues and diseases. And I'm very interested now because it's people specific. And I think it's the same with money, honestly, that when we talk about money, it's really not about the money per se. It's what are your goals? Do you want to send your kids to college? Do your kids want to move out of the house because they're 30? Do you want to kick them out of the house because they're 30? All those issues, little kids, people I think are very anxious, young parents. I see them and they feel anxious about these are uncertain times. So how do I help my kid get some control? How do I make sure they're smart in a way I wasn't smart about money? How do I, if I'm doing well, how do I prevent them from being spoiled? A guy at Google asked me that question.
Yes, I wanted to focus on that for a second because I've gotten a lot of emails around this issue, which is how can you foster responsibility in children? And everyone listening, don't be writing in because I know I'm about to get bombed by email. If you're rich, or let's just say you don't even think you're rich, but you're rich by most definitions. You're a 1%er.
Right.
How do you not screw up your kids and make them crazy about money?
Right. I think what's been very interesting to me is seeing that whether people have a lot of money or not that much money, it's sort of the same goals and desires for the most part. You know, our kids lead productive lives, hopefully. They have, good jobs and they're working hard and good relationships. And we know one thing that lets you be that is delayed gratification. The idea when you go into a store, Duke University did a study, when you go into a store and your kid's like, I want that gum, I want that candy, I want that toy, you say no. Because research shows if you always give in and say yes, yes, yes at the checkout line, that kid will have more financial problems, more debt problems down the road. And so delayed gratification, whether you have a lot of money or little money, you don't lie. You don't have to say, we can't afford it. You can say, we're not going to buy that now.
Okay, we'll get back to our interview with Beth Kobliner in just a minute. While you're on the break, why don't you go buy a copy of her book, Make Your Kid a Money Genius, or maybe you've got a young graduate going out into the real world. You can find her other book, Get a Financial Life. Beth Kobliner here on the Jill on Money Show. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money. Have you headed to our website, jillonmoney.com? You can listen to past shows or sign up for our free newsletter. Read, listen, watch. Get the newsletter. Do it all. If you've got a financial question, we'd like to hear from you. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That's our email address, and we will go through it as best we can. Mark, are we going to have to do like a whole show of emails? Is that what's a summer show of emails? We're going to have to do a few. Look, we're going to have to get busy. Mark and I are trying. We're juggling doing the guests and getting your calls and just emails. So we're going to have to get to that, Mark. Maybe we'll block out I can't do it on Fridays. You know I don't like to work so hard on Fridays. We'll pop in some Thursday sessions. Okay. All right. If you think it's tough to make financial stuff entertaining, you're right. And that is why you're listening to the show, because we do a little entertainment. But so does our guest. She entertains as well. And to introduce the concept of how to talk to your kids about money, our guest, Beth Kobliner, teamed up with Kate McKinnon to create a video. Check this out. It's wild and it's really fun. We have a link to the video in our show notes. So the book came out when? Last year, 2017, right?
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, I get this email where I'm sort of like, why is this from Beth when there's someone from Saturday Night Live on here? And it is a video with Kate McKinnon of SNL with 3 kids, and it is hysterical. And I need to understand how this came about. Right. We will embed this. Mark, put this in the post because it'll be great. This is basically a video in honor of Financial Literacy Month.
Correct.
Which is April.
Right.
And this video now has something like 800,000 views. It'll probably be a million views by the time.
It's on YouTube, on my website.
So what was the genesis of the video, and how did you, what a get?
What a get. It was
on.
Best get ever.
Fabulous.
I have to say. So money is the number one stressor for families. And people, as you know, tend to freeze up when they talk about it. So I'm like, let me figure out a way to get at this issue. How do you talk to kids about money and do it in a fun way? And I reached out to Above Average. It's a production company, Lauren Michaels' production company. And they said, oh, okay, we'll work on a video with you. And they came back and said, it's possible we can get Kate McKinnon, who is interested in this, topic. And she wanted, she's giving back and doing good and saying, okay, she'll work on this. And she was hysterically funny.
Oh, my gosh.
She was so wonderful, so smart, so wonderful with kids. And what I love about the video is, besides the fact it's hysterical, the way she talks to kids, the way kids understand things about money, it shows how little kids know about money. And I've been finding, as I've been going around the country, how little parents know about money. So the basic point of the video is to make people laugh and sort of be an icebreaker. When you see a kid's like, oh, what's a credit card? Or, oh, how do I save money? It's just so
great.
Funny, their answers. And, the kids say the darndest thing kind of thing. And it was so funny. And I feel like it's the kind of video parents could watch, kids can watch it with their parents and sort of start those conversations. What is money? How do we talk about it?
So I think that your next book, which you have not written yet, but maybe you should, is in the same way sort of you've discussed like your own aging process, right? Get a Financial Life was when you were a young journalist and you started that. And now as you became a mom, and it's like Make Your Kid a Money Genius. I think we need a book about how to talk to our aging parents because in the same, I mean, by the way, it is hysterical sometimes. And I was talking to an editor about my own book, and I was like, I'm putting this chapter in about talking to your parents, and the response was like, really? Like, do we need that? And so I knew that there was a generation gap, like the 10-year difference.
Yes.
And I said, go talk to any woman who's over the age of 45.
Yes.
And I hate to say this because I think men care about this, but I don't think they
it falls more
typically, right?
Disproportionately. Not always, but
disproportionately, right? I said, go talk to any woman who's over 45 and ask her what the top 3 conversation starters are with her own friends. And I know it's like, what did I say to you? Like parents, it's your aging parents.
Yeah.
So in the same way that I'm wondering if you have some insight about the problem that we have with money and the way that it's hard. You said, like, it's hard. I don't want to pass on a bad habit to my kids. Let's say that you need to open the door even with a spouse or an older generation. How do you think that people should approach that?
Right. I think they should first give them either my book or your book that's coming up, to sort of, sometimes it is good to have a third party in there to say, well, I say this so often to people who come to my book talk. They'll always say, oh, could you write this to my daughter-in-law? Or could you write this to my son? And it'll always be like, good saving, Johnny. Hope you save more, Sammy. I think sometimes it's helpful to have, say, somebody from the outside gave me this advice. I heard on Jill Schlesinger's show XYZ. That's, I think, really helpful. I think, we see from research, parents talk to boys about money more than they talk to girls, which, you think about it, is a long-term problem, because if girls are the ones helping their parents with money, I'm very lucky. I have an older brother who loves to help my dad pay his bills now. And my dad is very meticulous, never paid a late fee on a credit card. Really, really good about that. But I think that these kind of conversations are very important to have. And I think that, you're fooling yourself if you think you're not going to have them. And these issues come up all the time. It really is the circle of life. I think that is why I like personal finance, because it's really about the life cycle you're at and what your goals are for the future.
Yeah, it's more personal than finance, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if people are, let's say you've screwed up.
Right.
You've completely screwed up. You haven't talked to your kids. Your kids are just, takers. They're a little bit leechy, but you've enabled it. Okay?
Yes.
So now pretend that, we know people like this. That they are people our age, in their 50s. And what can they do to try to undo some of those bad habits, do you think?
I think it's important to be honest with their kids and talk to their kids and say, look, and first of all, reflect on themselves. Because I've heard parents say, yeah, my kid just graduated from college and he's lived at home for 2 years on the couch and I'm just going to, tough love, I'm going to throw him out. And that's like, okay, so you haven't really talked to them about being responsibility for 23 years and now suddenly you're going to throw them out. That, to me, doesn't feel fair. So I think that talking about, here are goals. If you're living at home or you're, we're paying off your bills and you're in your 20s, it's time now for you to get financially independent. We're going to work on a plan to how to make that happen. And not making it punitive as much as productive. We're going to sit down and we're going to come up with a written plan of we're going to pay off this debt, which you feel like, whether it's a student loan debt, if you have the money to do it, we're going to do that. However, you're going to need to have a plan. Instead of spending all that money that's coming in, you're earning money. I mean, I've had women come over to me. They're like, my 30-year-old son is back home. He's single, living on the couch. I said, I'm calling him now. I've taken their phone. I've done this. And it's like, sometimes parents are too good. They feel like, oh, I don't want my kid to. And you have to be really clear and not crazy and not throw them out the next day, but talk to them. I know you have a lot of student debt. Okay, you're going to come up with a plan to pay that off. In the meantime, you're going to pay me rent because you're living in my home. Really putting in place clear guidelines for grown-up kids. I was on a TV show the other day, and the host came over to me afterwards. She's like, my grown sister just got married, and they moved back in with our parents, and I think that's crazy. And now my parents are helping them financially, and my mom thinks it's crazy, but my dad wants to do it. There's a lot of conversations that need to be had, and I think the more honest we are and open and talking about it, and I think for younger kids, parents really need to have a unified front. My parents always said that, but you can't play one parent off the other.
We'll get back to our interview with Beth Kobliner in just a second. Don't forget, when you listen to this program, if you've got a question, you can always send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger. Have a question? Call or email anytime. 855-411-JILL or ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com.
You're back with Jill on Money. And, last week, everyone had to put the check, not the check in the mail, you had to sign your letter of intent as to where you will be going to college. You or your kids had to do that. College is such a massive expense. $70,000 a year for private schools, $25,000 a year if you're going in state. Yes, cheaper if you go to community college. I'll tell you what, the month between your kid getting into college and having to make the decision about your financial aid is not the time to talk to your kid about how much you can afford to spend on college. It's not. You got to start way earlier. That is according to our guest, Beth Kobliner. She is an author, a financial journalist, a financial literacy advocate, and author of the book, Make Your Kid a Money Genius. She has some incredible advice for parents. And so if you're out there and your kid's not going to school right now, or if you've got younger ones, here's what you need to know about when to start talking to your kids about the college years. How about when we should have conversations about the college experience, meaning that I hate, we're talking right now, it's college acceptance season and college graduation season's around the corner. And, there's going to be a lot of people who make big decisions and make really dumb ones also.
Really dumb ones.
But that said, how early can you start having conversations with your kids about really what you can afford? Because I feel like it's like when you said, it's unfair to kind of throw your kid out after being home for 2 years. I feel like it's also a little bit dangerous because you can get to senior year and the kid gets into school and it's like, I can go to SUNY Binghamton for half the price or I can go to Syracuse for twice the amount. And as a parent, if you didn't have the conversation a few years ago to say like, well, actually, we cannot afford Syracuse.
Right. And SUNY Binghamton's an amazing school.
Right. Yeah. So when do we have those conversations?
The end of 8th grade, beginning of 9th grade.
Wow.
Which sounds, people are like, oh, that's early. I don't want to stress my kid. Your kids are stressing out already. Yeah. Everybody around them is talking about college and who's going to get in where. So you say at the end of 8th grade, look, you know what? We're going to sit down and we're going to figure out what are great schools for you, but affordable to us. And parents have to do a little homework. And in Make Your Kid a Money Genius, I go through, the websites to go to, but go look for the FAFSA forecaster. You could fill it out and see, if I get some financial aid, what would it be? And then what are my child's options? And I think that it's really doing a disservice to kids not to talk to them about it. 8th grade, 9th grade. First of all, you say grades count. So this is when you start paying attention. But also the idea that a kid could go through 4 years. A college counselor in Silicon Valley told me that she has had cases where parents didn't want to admit not only to their kid, but to the rest of the community that they can't afford a very expensive school. So the process sort of played out. And it was only at the very end that they said to their kid, you can't go. I mean, that's devastating.
Yeah.
You work so hard, you try to get into a place, and then your parents say, oops, sorry, we can't afford it. You have to have these conversations early. And I am 100% in agreement with you. This sort of whole myth of, oh, this is the best place to go or that's the best place to go is ridiculous. And I think
Spoken by two brown graduates.
yeah, but
I know.
you know what? We would have been here no matter where we went to school. I could have easily gone to Queens College and I would have ended up here, and you could have easily gone with me to Queens College.
I could have.
And we would have been friends.
I would have only known to get there, but it's like, oh, this is, you have to get off before you get to the airport.
Right.
But you know what is interesting, because I think what you're bringing up also is a certain amount of shame
Yeah.
that people feel
Yeah.
around money. And I feel like that's so sad. Remember that study that came out a few years ago, and it said, above a certain amount of money of earned income,
Right.
people weren't that much happier.
Yes.
That was
Fascinating.
great, right?
A new one just came out, and it was basically the same number. Like above, is it $100,000?
Yeah, it's something like
yeah.
somewhere between, depending on where you live, it's somewhere around $75,000 to $125,000 as a
Exactly.
household, okay?
Right.
And that because you have shelter, you can pay your bills.
Right.
But once you get above that, then all of a sudden you feel bad about what you can't have.
Right.
Or you compare yourself up versus down. I also
Yes.
found that, like, watching the political season, I always find it interesting. Like, well, no one begrudges, like, you could go to certain places where they, oh, that person qualifies for Medicaid. How dare that person? But you don't. But the rich person got a tax cut. I don't care.
Right.
So I don't quite
Right.
get that.
Right.
But I do find it fascinating. Let's say among our cohorts, people who are making a pile of money. Like, I'm a corporate lawyer and I make $1 million a year, or I make $500,000 a year. Yeah, but my client makes $8 million a year. So
Right.
at what point do you start feeling bad about looking
Right.
up and angry at looking down? And in the middle of everything, it's all just emotional, because, like, it makes no difference in your life.
You know what? To me, this is all about the Lacoste sweater. When I was in, I think it was first grade, and this was back in Queens, I remember a girl had a Lacoste shirt, and I really wanted one.
The little alligator.
The little alligator, Izod, Lacoste, whatever, a little alligator. And my parents, I don't even think I asked for it because I knew we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a teacher, then a principal. My mom was a chemistry teacher, then a stay-at-home mom. So I didn't have an alligator shirt. And then my mom's aunt sent her a big bag, and in it was a sweater with a Lacoste, a Lacoste alligator. So I cut it out of the sweater because it was too big for me, and I sewed it onto my shirt. And I went to school, first grade, and this girl said, that's not a real Lacoste shirt. And I was mortified. And I think that feeling of wanting to fit in, wanting to belong, wanting to excel starts when we're very, very young. And we have to just say to ourselves, look, yeah, we don't go on this fancy vacation, but man, do we have fun when we invite our friends over. We have a ping pong table in our basement, which is what we had. And that's what we do. And that's our family values. And I feel like that is so powerful, and it can really change the outlook of your children and yourselves, really appreciating, it sounds so Pollyanna, but it's true. What are the important things to me? And if education is really important, then it's not really necessarily get into what other people say is the best school. It's what's the right school for us as a family. And I think that realization, I think over time we're going to get there. I think more and more people are being reasonable. It goes just like everything. It's a pendulum. It swings one way and then it comes back the other way. And I think, in the last 10 years, there are a lot of people saying, oh, suddenly there's the internet and everyone wants to go to this school or that school, and it seems so competitive, and you read about it and they all read about their friends getting into places on Facebook. I think it's really doing a disservice. I think families have to talk about these issues and what are our values as a family.
We'll get back to our interview with Beth Kobliner in just a minute. If you've missed any portion of this interview, just go to JillOnMoney.com. You can listen to this show or past shows if you've missed them. You can also check out our podcast. Better Off, you can get it on Apple, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcasts. Jill on Money. We will be right back.
Wondering how to make your money work for you? Get on the line now, 855-411-JILL. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Hey, you know what we haven't talked about? I'm going to have to do this for another show, but the Securities and Exchange Commission out with a new rule that is it's a 90-day comment period. It's kind of an updated version of their what they call their suitability standard. That's kind of this low bar that any broker has to basically give you advice or sell you something that's suitable for you, but it's not in your best interest. Well, they're upgrading that to call it the best interest rule. Here's what I need you to know. The SEC's rule is less than the fiduciary standard that the Department of Labor had created, but then that whole thing got scrapped anyway. When you talk to a financial professional, this is what you really need to know. You say, are you held to the fiduciary standard? You ask them that at all times, meaning when you sell me stuff, when you present your financial plan, when you tell me which is the best 529 plan, do you have to put me first? Put me first. This whole idea now that they named it best interest is annoying because it conflates, best interest, isn't that what fiduciary is? It's not. So the rule is a little light. It's very hard. All of this is very confusing. Financial literacy can be confusing. Who's trying to sell you what can be confusing. That's why we have our guest, Beth Kobliner. She is a financial literacy advocate and author joining us today. Here's more of our interview with Beth. So before we finish up, you know that there are people who are critics of financial literacy. And I don't think they're critical of doing it, but I think that, for example, I'm thinking about Helene Olin, who wrote this great book called Pound Foolish. Right. And she's worried that there is sort of a baloney type of financial literacy. Absolutely. Which is essentially like a salesperson trying to quote unquote teach you.
Absolutely. Which is why at every talk I give, I say, I'm a journalist. I'm not working for any company. I'm not being paid by, a bank or a credit card to do this for you. And whenever somebody gives you financial advice, that's your first question. I think to sort of throw out the baby with the bathwater, say, that's like saying, well, let's not teach anything. Let's not teach driver's ed because the person's getting paid for their services. Well, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but I'm thinking of like you have to sort of take it with a grain of salt, like anything else, any other thing you hear, and figure out where your advice is from. If somebody is a fee-only financial planner or they disclose what they're getting for you, and you have to just be informed. But I think, we know now FINRA did a study on financial literacy, and they found in schools when it was taught well, when the teachers had resources and they were prepared to teach these classes, those kids went on to have better credit scores in their life. So it's just, it's not brain surgery. I feel like I'm all for randomized control studies, and I think we should probably do more. But we don't say, why do we teach English to classes? Nobody walks around speaking like they did in Shakespeare's time. You do it to educate people. And I think teaching basic financial literacy in schools is essential, and only 5 states have a requirement that you have a full-time financial literacy class. But, it has to be good financial literacy.
How are we going to get that changed? I remember, is there still an organization called Jumpstart?
Yes, there's Jumpstart. There's the Council on Economic Education. It really ends up coming down to if there's a teacher in a school who's interested in personal finance, they will teach a class because only 5 states have this requirement to have a full financial literacy class. 17 states have some kind of requirement to have financial literacy in the classroom. But at the end of the day, as we know, if the person in front of you is just sort of going through the motions and teaching you,
periodic table memorization,
exactly, then it's not going to sink in.
It's so sad because there's a great opportunity. All you have to do is say in elementary school, math, right? One portion of each math class should be using examples of personal finance.
Right.
It's
compound
very easy.
Interest.
Hello.
Hey, 10-year-olds, if you put away $100 a year starting at age 10 and you do that to age 20, and even if you stop and it's in a plain old investment, you let it sit there, you'll have $50,000 most likely by the time you're ready to stop working. Those examples excite children, and kids are interested in this. It's really, it does seem like it's, hopefully there's more and more, more and more schools are realizing this, and more states are trying to pass legislation. But it's surprising to me how difficult it is to get this on the books. And then when it's on the books, to make sure it's taught well.
And if you want to learn well, you will buy both of Beth Kobliner's books. Not only should you get A Financial Life, which, by the way, fantastic gift for graduation season. Thank you very much.
You.
When was the last update of that?
It was 9 months ago.
Oh, perfect. So get A Financial Life by Beth Kobliner. We will link to it in our show notes. And for anyone out there who wants to talk to their kids about money, make your kid a money genius, even if you are not one yourself. Beth Kobliner, author, financial literacy advocate. But let me just tell you my favorite way to describe you. Money goddess. You are a money goddess, and you are fantastic. And go check out the video with Kate McKinnon. And I can't thank you enough for being here. You're always a breath of fresh air. And it's really important information, because you know what? You don't want to get all of your information from some salesperson, and you don't want to stick your head in the sand.
Right.
So this is your third party who is unbiased, who's going to help you out. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Jill. You're always so fun.
Thanks so much to Beth Kobliner. Go get one or both of her books. Make your kid a financial genius, even if you're not one yourself. And the other one, Get a Financial Life. All right, it's Jill on Money. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a question, it could be about retirement, it could be taxes, it could be real estate, it could be education, maybe it's housing. Big housing time right now. We would love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Thomas sent us an email, and he asked, what would you recommend we invest money in for the future of a 6-month and 6-year-old grandchild or children not connected to education plans? What are the ramifications to us? This is not my favorite thing. Okay, not connected to you. All right, so things you could do. You could buy savings bonds. They're not paying much interest, but, it's not necessarily connected to any college. There is some good treatment of savings bonds when it comes to education, but it's not specifically for education. You can open a custodial account, which would be, in your name with the kids or the custodians. But remember, they get that money usually when they're 18. You could just keep an account for yourselves, and that you could then gift from that account. That's a possibility. But all of these are taxable. And I guess the safest thing to do would be not to have a custodial account, because that would be counted against the kids for any sort of financial aid in the future. Anything that sort of has the kid's name on it, whether it's as a custodial account or a trustee or a beneficiary, any of those accounts would be counted against the kids in a more at a higher percentage when it comes to financial aid calculations. So, I mean, most of this stuff is just, it's common sense. If you want to keep it in your name, it's your tax ID number. The taxes it's your deal. I still love the 529 plan because of the tax benefit. But since you said you specifically don't want it for education, then you can just put it in your name or their name. So those are your choices. Thanks for writing. And hey, thanks for listening. It's been a great show. If you have any questions about what we've talked about today, send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. And if you missed any of the program, please head over to the website, jillonmoney.com. You can find all the past shows. Just go under the Listen tab and let us know what you think. Okay, thanks so much, and we will talk to you next week.